Everywhere you turn, people are saying, get on podcast shows. They're a great way to market your business. They're a great way if you're an author to promote your book. They're a great way if you're a speaker to lay the foundation during the shutdown so that when things open up, you'll be top of mind for conference meeting planners. Hi, this is Kathleen Gage, and do you ever wonder if all of that's true? Well, today on Podcast Rockstar Club Facebook Live, I interview and have a conversation with Yvonne DiVita of Nurturing Big Ideas, where she shares with you why she absolutely loves podcast interviews and why you should be getting on board with the same thing. So stick around because we're going to have a great conversation.
Awesome, Kathleen. Thank you so much. This is really quite an honor. I can't tell the audience how honored I feel and privileged to have you in my life. Honestly, people back in the day, back in the early 2000s, 2005, 2006, when we were just getting started blogging, I'll say myself and Tom, we were running a book publishing company. We were trying to teach our authors to blog because we felt it was the up and coming way to get attention online and to market yourself. Well, Kathleen, people were starting to podcast also, but somehow podcasting didn't seem to go anywhere. It was there. A few people were doing it. I listened to a few podcasts here and there, and some of them are still around today, but it kind of didn't have the legs blogging did. I think blogging was the foundation for what we're experiencing today in podcasting. Absolutely. And the reality is you got on board because you were smart. You're all smart anyway about everything, but man, when I saw you getting on board with the whole podcasting thing, that's when I sat up to take notice. And I said, Kathleen thinks this is a big deal. I should figure this out. And so it's what I do now in Nurturing Big Ideas, where I help women write books. I help them build businesses because a book is a business. And I am starting to do more and more podcast interviews. And Kathleen, I want to say the podcast interview isn't to market me. The podcast interview is to do and share as much as I can with the audience so that they can go out and make a success of whatever it is they choose to do with their lives.
Well, let's start with you giving some background on what it is you do and who is your market. Why do you feel podcasting right now is the most important tool to be using?
So my market is women probably from 30 to 60, 65, and they're women in business, women who have a story to tell, who are either sharing their memoir or their business success in a book that will transform the lives of other women who read it. So that's my market. I work with those women to make sure that the book they're creating is the best product for their business and that it's going to serve the audience that they want it to serve, because it's not easy to write a book. You probably would agree with that. Writing a book, some of the
especially a memoir, memoir.
And
yeah.
Even harder. Yes. And simple 2 to 3 page ebooks, those are easy. But when you're telling the story, when you're really relaying and laying out your soul because you know the people at the other end are going to be transformed. You want it to be, I don't want to say perfect because I don't like perfect, but you want it to be exactly right. And so that's what I do. I work with women from first page to last page.
Okay.
My husband does the internal page design and layout. And we also do book covers. And then you end up with a wonderful product that you can use in your marketing and upload to Amazon and begin selling right away.
And how do you normally find your clients, or how do they find you?
I do a lot of networking. I go out on groups on Facebook, groups on LinkedIn, and I'm always out there connecting, talking, supporting, sharing. And in the last 2 years, I have discovered that podcasting is something I should be doing. And that's a key thing here is I knew podcasting was becoming a little more popular than it was, 15, 20 years ago, for gosh sakes. Doesn't seem that long, but it is. I knew that, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know where they were. I didn't know how to find them. I didn't know what to do. And so I looked to my friend Kathleen and this podcast Rockstar club that she has. And I'm learning so much from you, Kathleen. One of the major things is that, gosh, podcasts are really a personal connection to both the interviewer and the audience. And that's what you want. That's what I want in my business. I want my women who are writing these books to have a personal connection with their audience.
Well, let's drill down on this, because it's kind of counterintuitive. As writers, blogging seems to fit for us. And I remember back in the day when blogging first started, and it was actually Denise Wakeman and Patsy Krakoff who were kind of the two big bloggers in the women's market for sure. And it was so foreign. It was like, what's a blog? How do you get it up online? And at that time, it was there was a different platform that people were using than what most of us are using now. But now blogging is second nature. It's something that a lot of us do. And then podcasting came along, and early on, it was very difficult to get podcasts uploaded and have your own podcast show. And gosh forbid that we should even think of getting on other people's shows. But there's so much opportunity now. And when you think of shows that, first of all, do you have a show?
I have a video podcast show where I bring on what I call smart women. And these are women that I feel can share their story to help inspire and transform other women.
Okay. And there's the video platform and there's the audio platform, and there's a combination of the two. Actually, later today, I'm going to be uploading another episode for my plant-based eating podcast. I have two podcast shows, and one is Power Up for Profits. The other one is Plant-Based Eating. And the plant-based eating, very, very, very niched. It's like there's certain criteria. I don't bend on that criteria. So as you look for opportunities, how do you know if a show is the right fit for you to even approach the host? What's your whole process?
Well, I am a freelance writer from more than 20 years ago. So I'll tell you, Kathleen, you cannot approach anything like a podcast or a freelance writing job without having read the magazine or visited the podcast show. If you do not listen to some of the podcasts and get a feel, and you have to get a feel for both the tone and the message that the podcast host is sharing with their audience, but you also have to feel the inner connection to that. You have to be comfortable knowing that your message that you're bringing is going to serve that audience. It's both for you and the podcast host. But if we don't always look at the audience, so back in the day, freelance writers, we used to study how to do it all, how to be successful as a freelance writer. And not only were we told, read the magazine you were going to submit to, we were told, look at the ads. Who's advertising in that magazine? Because if your message goes against one of the major advertisers in that magazine, it can be the best story the magazine ever heard. The editor is not going to run it because the advertisers pay for the magazine.
That's interesting. And which actually, that's really interesting because I've never considered that for podcasts. So you just gave me a big aha light bulb moment. If you're pitching a podcast show that has certain advertisers or sponsors and it goes against the core of who you are, one, you may not want to be connected with that show, or two, they may not want to be connected with you. That is a really, really great point. So take us through the process of, okay, you're going to set a goal. We'll say that you're going to target maybe getting on 10 shows during the month of January. What's your process? Tell me exactly what you would do and how much of that is related to what you've learned through the podcast Rockstar Club.
Well, I definitely learned from you how to go to Apple and do some searching. That's a key part. I'm going to go to Apple. I'm going to search some keyword phrases. And for me, they would be relevant to writing a book, women writing a book, women's big ideas. I look at inspirational shows that talk about the journey. So shows that want to talk about my journey through business. How did I get from there to here? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of shows like to hear that. This is my fourth successful business. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I'm going to look at all of those keyword phrases, but I'm also going to go to Google and do that. And I might also go to LinkedIn and do that. Mm-hmm. So those are kinds of things that you inspired me through the podcast Rockstar show to do in search of possible podcast shows. And then, of course, you have to have a spreadsheet. I don't like spreadsheets, so I'm going to garble when I say the word spreadsheets. But
that's what VAs are for.
There you go. And basically, then I think an important thing that is key for me, Kathleen, is the schedule, your schedule. Don't overschedule yourself. Sure, maybe you want 10, but maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you only want 5. I mean, look at the big picture. Look at the first quarter. Where do you want to be? How do you want to end up the first quarter? So which podcast shows should you be on? And I don't want to be on 25 because my business is growing. I'm signing new people for my coaching programs, and that's where my focus is. Mm-hmm. So the podcast programs are to help me, again, serve the audience, maybe find new clients, but generally get the word out that this is something I want women to do, write a book.
You know, I'm really glad you mentioned that because I go back to when the two of us first met and you actually found me online, you approached me, and had I not had that visibility, you never would have reached out to me. And what you invited me to be a part of is Blog Pause. And it was my visibility that was what encouraged you to invite me to speak at Blog Pause. And what I really encourage people to look at is how visible are you in the marketplace? And there's no better tool nowadays than podcasts. And, you know, in a year, 5 years from now, that may change. But for right now, the hot thing to be doing is podcasting. Whether you have your own podcast show, and it could be a video podcast, it could be an audio, it could be a combination of the two, and to get on shows. Because when you're getting on shows, you're actually getting exposed to other people's markets. And like myself with my show, Plant-Based Eating for Health, I'm getting some of the top influencers on my show. And the reason I am is because I've been consistent in bringing guests onto my show. So if you want to create opportunities in 2021, you absolutely must be visible. And I've had people say, well, what if I don't like to be on camera? Then look for shows that are audio only. There's plenty of them out there. And as you look to 2021, what are your goals around podcasting, and how much does that impact your ability to generate leads? When you're on podcast shows, do you actually have people that reach out to you? Do you have them go to your website? What's the whole process there?
Absolutely. I've had people reach out to me because they saw me on a podcast, one place or another, and they liked the message. So again, be clear in what your message is. And mine is that women, I would like you to write books so you can transform lives, because there are not enough women's voices in the marketplace, in the book marketplace. Here's the other reality, Kathleen. For me, going forward, I want women to also understand that this book I'm asking them to write, while it's transforming someone else's life, it will transform their life because they'll be more attractive to podcast hosts. And that will help them build a platform, Kathleen, so that when COVID is over, they can now show that they have been interviewed and participated in these podcast shows, and they will be more sought after with their book to be on conference speaking platforms and keynotes.
I love that you said that. And I want to remind people, this is Kathleen Gage with the podcast Rockstar Club. I'm talking with Yvonne DiVita, who helps women entrepreneurs, women experts take their books to market and really transform not only the lives of the reader, but their own life. And you work with authors who want to write memoirs, nonfiction books. And, it's so interesting what you said about laying the foundation, especially right now with a lot of things shut down. I'm a conference speaker. I have been to, I can't even count the number of conferences where I've been a keynote speaker, a breakout speaker, an MC. And that came to a screeching halt when the pandemic hit, when everything got shut down. My job was not to find a hole and dig a hole and go further into it, even though I was tempted to do that. It was to really look at, okay, what can I do with this period before the conferences are opened up again? And a big part of it is laying a foundation and really setting the stage for when these opportunities present themselves, that I'll be standing apart from the competition. And that's what I encourage all my clients to do and everybody who's a member of the Podcast Rockstar Club. And I got to tell you, for those of you in the Podcast Rockstar Club, I know if you've gone through the program or not. And it's really amazing how many people will sign up for a program and then they don't even go through the training. It's like, why? You're not going to get it through osmosis, I've got to tell you. And we do have people that are listening live right now. I want to take a look. And Linda Burton Williams, I just interviewed her son, Garrick, who did a great job on the plant-based Eating for Health show. Mm-hmm. And I encourage people, put your questions in the comments area. Any question you have for Yvonne about getting a book to market, about how she uses podcast shows to gain visibility. So let's talk about that foundational work. What would you say for a 12-month period? Let's plan out the next 12 months and be really optimistic about what's coming. What would you encourage authors to do to establish a platform? Because many authors say, well, I want to go to a publishing house. I want to get published. And without a platform, they're not even going to look at you. You have to nowadays have a platform. A platform is your presence primarily online. So what do you encourage your authors to do to get that platform?
Podcasts are a really great way, a really, really great way. So they need to go through your program, though, because they're just going to be failing and then getting discouraged, and then they'll have a couple wins, but then nothing will happen. And I mean, you have to look at this as a process. It's just like writing the book. Everyone thinks you can just sit down and write a book. And the truth of the matter is, writing a book is that easy for a very small portion of people. But generally speaking, the average person needs some guidance, which is what Nurturing Big Ideas is about. So when you're looking at a 12-month, it's hard to look 12 months. I like to look at 6 months and then regroup. So if we look at 6 months, where do you want to be in 6 months? So I ask people all the time when they contact me, where would you like to be? Here's what they tell me, Kathleen. They want to be speaking. They want to take their story on the road. And that's where I say to them, then you need to get in front of the right people now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So here's another thing. Not everyone is going to become a keynote speaker. Correct. What if you're like me and you're happy to hang around your local region? I love speaking to women's groups. They can be just as beneficial to you as a great big giant conference that you might want to be a keynote at. So don't forget that. Don't forget the little groups. So be on a podcast. And some of them, the women's groups are having podcasts now, and they're desperate. They're desperate for speakers. They're desperate for people to interview. They don't know you're there. You need to let them know you're here.
I have to tell you,
one thing you really did for me, Kathleen, is you had me create a speaker sheet. For a whole year and a half, I was supposed to do, and I didn't do it till I got on your show.
Okay, excellent. Because I just spoke for the International Vegan Women's Association. It's It's an association of women from around the world who all have vegan businesses. Now, some people are like, what's a vegan business? Manufacturers, Impossible Meats, or Beyond Meats, or Impossible Burger. There's manufacturers, there's clothing companies, there's makeup companies, there's consultants, there's authors, there's nutritionists. There's a whole world of people out there who are within that industry. And I had the opportunity to speak for that group. It's the second time I've spoken for the group. And guess what I spoke about? Podcasts. Amazing. And out of it, I already have some people who reached out to me and they said, I'd like to have a consultation and find out if you might be a good fit to help me grow my business. I couldn't have done that without the opportunity through podcasting. And that's why I really encourage people, don't wait. Roll up your sleeves, really go through the training program and set your goals of how many shows you want to get on, and realize you may get rejected. And it's so interesting because I've interviewed a few people who've gone through the training that before they went through the training, they would reach out and they would get rejected over and over and over. And oftentimes it was one little change that they made that made all the difference. And the change was they were sending way too much information to begin with. It was like they would send their book, they would send their all their marketing material, their links to all social media. It's like, find out if they're even interested in you first before you do anything. But we've got a couple of people who have written some comments, and Anna says, I want to publish a book, but keep getting sidetracked with different stuff. I think I need to focus on the book so I can consolidate the content I already have. And I would love for you to address that, Yvonne. And I want to remind people I'm talking with Yvonne DiVita. And Yvonne, if people want to reach out to you and have maybe a 10 or a 15-minute conversation, is that something that you offer people with no obligation?
Oh, absolutely. And it's part of my capability coaching.
Okay.
So, and I created the capability coaching for women just like that. Women who said, I really do want to do this, but I keep getting sidetracked. So can you help me at least get like chapters 1 through 5 done over a period of 6 to 9 months? Well, I promise you we'll get more than 1 through 5 done over a period of 6 to 9 months. But the point of the matter is that some people want that accountability. And then while I provide the accountability, I also provide some of the training that you need to become a successful writer. And Kathleen, when we look at the whole media, let's say, landscape, so to speak, and what you were saying earlier about speaking with your plant-based eating, when I'm looking for women who are in business, for instance, and sometimes I have to help them understand their market. So you know where your plant-based eating market is. You know where the boundaries are there. You've done the work of identifying that. So many people come to me and they are going to write a book and it's going to be for women. Well, isn't that nice? I'm so happy that it's going to be for women. But let's do a few exercises and figure out which women. Now, that doesn't mean that the women we identify are the only women that will read it. And that's the thing, is people think it is. If they think when you drill down to that niche, well, then I'm stuck in that niche and nobody else will ever do it. Well, that's not true. It's the same with any media that you do. You have to have a starting point, and the starting point has to be your foundation. So when you're building the foundation, you identify your niche. Now you go after those niche podcasts. And then you will meet people who listen, who invite you to be on other shows where you can say, yes, that's a good fit, or no, it isn't. But you have to know. If you don't know, then you're just taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back.
Absolutely. And here's a great question from Anna. What do you think about the promos from coaches that say you can write a book in a weekend?
I think that you can. I'm not going to write a book in a weekend with you, because here's the thing. That's a fluff piece. And it could be a good marketing tool. It could be the equivalent of a brochure. I am not going to criticize those people. They do it. They put out books, but I'm talking about substantial stories. I'm talking about digging deep and really sharing the substance of who you are, what you've done, and how it will transform someone's life. So again, I'm not going to go there to those people. I would never sign up for one of those myself because I'm too serious about my writing and I'm too serious about the market it serves. But it can be done, just not with me.
And I want to clarify a few things because I write different types of books, and I've written my book Power Up for Profits. It took me 3 months to write the content, but a lot of that was repurposed content. So that's something to consider when you hear them say you can write a book in a weekend. You can, and usually it's with people who already have content. When I write an ebook that's a promotional ebook, for example, my book Virtual Podcast Tour. That book was written quite rapidly, but I had the content that I was able to repurpose. So that's one type of book. My memoir, I have to tell you, I've been working on that for over 4 years now, which boggles my mind because I'm never a 4-year book kind of person. That just doesn't happen. But I keep hitting roadblock after roadblock because it's a very emotionally driven book. And my first go through of doing the writing, it took probably about 6 to 9 months of doing basically a brain dump and a download. I got 90,000 words, and now it's time for cleanup. Well, I'll tell you, the cleanup is one, there's a lot of cleanup I have to do. And two, I'm hitting areas where my editor is saying, you didn't really describe this in much detail at all. You wrote it like a business book, and that's not what a memoir is. So it depends on the type of the book. It depends on the purpose of the book. If you're using the book as a lead gen, that's one conversation. If you're writing a good nonfiction business book, that's going to take you a lot longer. And you want to look to experts like Yvonne, where she can guide you through it, because that's what Yvonne does with people. She has done some phenomenal books. So thank you for that question, Anna. I really appreciate it. And Debbie says, Kathleen is awesome. Yvonne, I appreciate your insights. Thank you. And Linda Burton Williams says, let's plan the next 12 months. And I encourage questions, any questions that you have. Is there ever a person who shouldn't write a book, Yvonne?
I haven't met one, but maybe there is. Here's the key, exactly what you just said. So it's the type of book. So when you say, oh, should you or shouldn't you write a book? Let's talk about what you mean by book. What kind of a book are you talking about? I don't do fiction, so please don't come to me if you have a fiction book. If you do, I may be able to direct you to someone else who might be able to help you, but I don't work on fiction books. I like to read them. My purpose is, to your point, Kathleen, I'm just finishing a book with a woman who had a ton of content between blog posts and articles and other things that she'd done. And she said, I want it to be a book, and I don't know how to make it a book. So together, she and I put together, pulled pieces out and put them together in a cohesive format. And then we went chapter by chapter by chapter, which is what I do. And she had to rewrite some of it, and she had to do exactly what you were told to do, is describe something a little more purposefully. And I did my developmental editing, and now Tom is doing the internal page design and layout, and the book is going to come out in early January.
Nice.
But it was a phenomenal amount of work because she wants this book to be purposeful in the world of business, in the world of leadership. So we didn't gloss over anything. Now, can you write an ebook in a weekend? Absolutely. You can write a 25-page. I could write a 50-page ebook in a weekend if I sat down at my computer and did it, because I'm a pretty prolific writer. But that's not the kind of book I'm talking about, because I'm talking about something with substance. I'm talking about something that has meat to it. I'm talking about something like your memoir, where the person is connected to the book, and because they're connected to the book, they want the book to have the right information. It has to have a through line. People are like, what's a through line? Well, the message from beginning to end. It has to go through the whole book. It can't stop in the middle. You can't stop here and pick it up 3 chapters later. It's got to have a through line. And then on top of that, the book has to serve a purpose beyond just making the author feel good. If you're writing a book to feel good, I'm not your coach.
Excellent. I love that. And speaking of which, how do people get in touch with you? What's your web address? And if they want to reach out and have a conversation about their book, how would they do that?
My email is my name, Yvonne at YvonneDiVita.com. So that's YVONNE and DIVITA. So Yvonne at YvonneDiVita.com, and nurturingbigIdeas.com is the website where you can read a little bit more about me and about my story and about blog posts and about how I was voted Woman of the Year in 2015. So, things like that. But the reality is we live in a world in business where it's your job to find a way to get noticed. And the best way to do that is to write a book. Now, that also gets you on podcast shows.
Absolutely.
In fact, as you probably know, Kathleen, if you start saying, I'm writing a book, you can get on podcast shows because they want to hear about that book you're writing.
Right. And I really want to segue that into plan out your promotions, because if you have a book coming out in March, let's say, what you want to do is you want to start reaching out right now to podcast hosts to see if they might actually do your show. As a matter of fact, the show that's going live today that I did, Natalie Stewart is the expert that I interviewed. She's out of the UK, and she has a new program for women who want to transition into a plant-based eating lifestyle. And her show launches January 4th. And she said, is there any way possible that we could have your show go live during X period of time? And I was very open to it because she approached it in the right way. So podcast hosts, we're just like anybody else. We want to help you succeed. We want to help our guests have a better message for our audience. So consider asking the host if there's a period of time that they could have your show go live, if it makes sense, but don't make them jump through hoops. I have one person that probably 6 times she has scheduled and canceled. Well, she has the link to my calendar, so she keeps scheduling and canceling. And finally I said, I don't think this is going to work out, because as a host, I don't have time for you to put something on my calendar and then I look forward to that. I block out that time. I plan for the editing, all of that, and then you keep canceling on me. That doesn't fly with host. Another thing you want to look at as an author, and there's a few people in this group who are working on books, or they've already got books, they put them up on Amazon, they're not getting the results they wanted. And I always ask an author, what are you doing to promote? Well, I'm telling my friends about it. That's not promotion. That's telling your friends about it. Your friends are not your audience in most cases. And you want to have a very strategic process for marketing your book. Podcast shows are probably one of the best things you can do. They're not the only thing, though. Keep that in mind. There's many aspects to marketing a book. And even though it's taken me already 4 years just to get to the point I've gotten to on my memoir, that's the easy part. The hard part is going to be marketing the book. The hard part is going to be finding those interviews that fit with the theme of the book. So don't assume that writing the book is the end all be all. That's the starting point, and working with a good coach like Yvonne, where you plan out your marketing as you're working on your book. So let's see if there's any other questions from people coming through. Go ahead, Yvonne.
That's why I say writing a book is like starting a small business. Because You have to put all the effort into your book that you put in starting your business.
I love that.
You don't just write a book and suddenly buy it.
Okay. And you're fading out a little bit. I don't know if it's my earplugs or you, but let's see. We've got from Anna. She says, I like
too. So
Okay. It must be the internet connection. Doggone it. we're going to blame it on the internet. Let's blame it on everybody but us. Okay. Linda says, this is so great, good information. And I like that it is clear. Each kind of book is so different, and that helps me. Anna says, I like that. I am writing a book. Interview me on your podcast and I'll tell you about it. I love it. Another comes from Debbie. She says, I have an anthology of 48 stories and I have a story. Which is better to pitch? One or both? Okay. If you're in an anthology book, I would pitch you. It's about you, although you can pitch the fact that it is an anthology and you can talk about the book, but it's really about your story more than just the anthology book. That's my opinion. Yvonne, what's your opinion on that?
Yep, I agree.
Okay. And let's see if there are other questions. And again, I want to remind people, I'm talking with Yvonne DiVita, and Yvonne can be reached at, again, give your web address, please, Yvonne.
nurturingbigideas.com.
Okay, and we'll make sure to put that in the show notes, because although this is being shot live in the private group, it will go up on YouTube. It'll go on all the audio platforms that my podcasts go out to. I'm going to do a blog post around it. That's one of the benefits of being a member of the Podcast Rockstar Club, is not only do you learn how to get on podcast shows, but once you achieve a certain number of podcast shows through the information, you've applied it, you've gone through the training, you've applied the information, you've gotten interviews, I will interview you, and then I'll do everything I can to help you gain visibility around that interview. So with that in mind, Yvonne, what are your final thoughts around podcasting, around being an author, around what's coming up in 2021, around staying healthy, around just being an amazing woman?
So here's what I would like to leave your audience with. You really need to look at your book and your business as something to be proud of, because too many women don't promote themselves very well. But I want to caution people. If you're emailing a podcast host, or if you're even emailing me or Kathleen, please don't write a dissertation, because we cannot read a dissertation. Do your best to keep it to 2 short paragraphs, because we will ask for more information if you have written, and this is one of the things I teach people to do, is write effective emails. I have this really deep passion for teaching people to use the right word in the right place, and the shorter the email that gets the message across, the more golden you're going to be. So I want people to understand that. But in the end, no matter what you're doing, you need to be looking at podcasts as one of the top viable things that you can do to market yourself, your book, your business. And that's not going away anytime soon. I promise you that.
Okay. Well, Yvonne, it has been delightful. I just so appreciate all that you're doing. And I'm so glad that a few years ago that I was doing a fundraiser for Delaney, little Delaney, who's gone over the Rainbow Bridge. And you reached out to me. It was because I had visibility. You took the step of reaching out. I took the step of saying yes. And the rest, as they say, is herstory. We have become very good friends as a result of that. And so you never know where these podcast interviews are going to take you. You never know where your visibility is going to take you. But what I encourage people to do is look at what your life purpose is. Look at what you're passionate about, and be willing to step out of your comfort zone and go for the gusto. Go as big as you possibly can from the comfort of your home. And Yvonne, thank you so much for your time and attention. And for the people who were on the live, I appreciate your time and attention. And for those who will be listening to the replay, thank you. And you all go out and live large. Have a great day. Bye-bye.